And Sarah, one of the things that I wanted you to tell me about was you had mentioned there was a story behind the WPA and sort of the, I don't know, the forming, if you will, of the Friends of Timberline Lodge. What was that story?
Well, the story is, and I wasn't there, but Dick Constam, Richard Constam, was the manager of Timberline Lodge, the area operator of the ski area since 1955. And he had to do a great deal to refurbish the lodge, to maintain the lodge. It was a huge undertaking for him and for the company, RLK and Company. And he, the way the story goes is that he was dancing one night with one of the guests at the lodge, and Mrs. Wright, Ann Wright, who comes from the Tacoma, Seattle area. And she said, well, when he complained about how difficult it was to restore the lodge, she said, well, you're just not doing this right. You need to get the public involved, and you need to get a nonprofit organized or work with a nonprofit to do some of the restoration work that needs to be done at the lodge. And so he really took that to heart. And one of his good friends, Jack Mills, had just retired from his position at the bank, at a Portland bank. And so he asked Jack to organize a nonprofit to raise money and help provide volunteer support for the lodge.
So that's how it came about.
That's how it came about. And also, apparently, when Mrs. Wright complained to, she also in the course of this conversation somehow complained to Dick that the curtains in her room were all torn. So he took them down and gave them to her to take home to repair.
Oh, yeah?
And she told us much later, I'm really not a seamstress, but she repaired them and sent them back to the lodge.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So the lodge actually came into existence, the WPA, the Workers, what is it, Workers Progress Association?
Works Progress Administration, right.
Thank you very much. When that's actually what spearheaded putting the lodge in, right?
Absolutely. And the WPA was organized as one of the New Deal projects under President Franklin Roosevelt in 1935. And Oregon, as all states, a WPA administrator was appointed. For Oregon, this man was named Emerson J. Griffith, and he was a skier and a shipper. He worked in Portland, and he had this idea of a lodge being built up on Timberline. And at first, he thought about government camp, but local Portland architect John Yon convinced him that the Timberline site would be better.
Wow.
And so it was really through the efforts of Mr. Griffith that this lodge was built, and even more so that he was able to get continued funding for the art and the furnishings that are in the lodge to be built for the lodge. And that's one thing that makes that place so unique.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's besides the fact that when you're standing right there and then Mount Hood is, right behind it, and then you turn around and you look out towards, Southern Oregon and the Three Sisters and Jefferson, and I mean, that alone is amazing. But then you go inside and experience the carvings and the furniture and all of that. Just a remarkable place. And you still make somewhere around 20 trips or something a year up there?
Yes, I probably do.
Yeah.
We'll go up and do tours on occasion when they'll ask me or invite me to do that. And
so what is your involvement with the lodge today?
Well, I'm helping with some Friends of Timberline current projects, and I'll do almost anything that they'll ask me to do up at the lodge. But the Friends of Timberline was formed almost over 30, yes, so 75. Yeah. So it's in 2005 it would have been 30 years old. So it's over 30, about 36 years ago. Well, some of the original board members have died, of course, because in that time period.
Sure.
And so the Friends wanted the original board members who were left to be interviewed. So that's one of the projects I've been working on.
Oh, wow. Now, is that all being recorded on film?
It is. There's a board member who is a videographer, a professional videographer, and he and I have been trying to contact as many of the original board members as we can.
Oh, how interesting.
Interview
How's that
them.
coming along?
It's coming along really well. It's we interviewed a woman, Patty Wessinger, several weeks ago, and unfortunately she died just last week, actually.
Oh, wow.
And so it is definitely timely to get that done.
Are there a few others too that you're really kind of
Yes, we interviewed Jack. Well, we're not up against the wall to interview others that we know of, but we certainly want to get the project done.
Do you guys have an idea when you think that'll be done?
This summer.
This summer?
Yes.
Oh, all right. And then where will you see this?
Well, we're hoping to put together something to show to the Friends of Timberline at the annual dinner.
Oh, okay.
Beyond that, we really hadn't any plan.
Okay. Tell me a bit about, because I would imagine you were probably pretty immersed in Timberline at the time when it sort of got put on the map for people who maybe didn't ski, weren't really familiar with the Northwest, but were movie buffs. And it will always be remembered as that hotel, that creepy lodge in The Shining.
Yes.
Were you there
No.
when all of that happened?
Actually, Friends of Timberline made the opening of The Shining a fundraising event, but no, I wasn't there when they did that filming. And really, they only used the exterior of the lodge, so I'm not sure how much they were in the lodge itself.
Yeah, because that's the thing that's so interesting too, is that it was just the exterior, and yet the entire movie, everybody thought, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but many thought that was actually the inside the lodge, the folks that hadn't been there before, and all it was the exterior, and it's become famous in some regards just because of that.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your book when we come back. So a little bit more about how that came together and the actual cataloging of it and where you can get it and all those sorts of things, and then what you're doing in the future. So be right back.
After the break.
We're lucky that it's at the lodge. It was painted. C.S. Price, for the lodge, C.S. Price painted 2 murals that were supposed to go in the Cascade Dining Room. And in fact, they were hung there, and then for some reason they weren't kept there. They were sent back to Portland.